I've always prided myself on being observant. It's a trait that's served me well in my career as a structural engineer, spotting the tiniest cracks in a foundation before they spiderweb into something catastrophic. My name's Daniel, and for 15 years, I thought I knew my wife, Claire, better than anyone. She was my constant, my blueprint for stability. We met in college, her an art history major with a laugh that could light up a room. Me, a quiet guy who preferred numbers to people. She was my opposite, my complement. We built a life together in a modest house just outside Portland, filled it with memories, a golden retriever named Milo, and plans for a future that felt unshakable. Lately, though, something felt off. It wasn't anything I could pin down at first, just a vague unease, like the hum of a machine running slightly out of tune. Claire had been spending more time at the gallery where she worked, curating exhibits and meeting with artists. She'd come home with stories of late-night openings, her eyes bright with a passion I hadn't seen in a while. I was proud of her. She'd always been the kind of person who threw herself into what she loved. But then there were the little things. The way she'd tilt her phone away when texting, the faint scent of cedarwood cologne on her scarf that wasn't mine, the excuses about client dinners that stretched past midnight. I told myself I was paranoid. 15 years of marriage doesn't crumble over a few odd moments. But last Thursday, I came home early from a site inspection. Rain had shut it down and found her car gone. She'd texted me that morning about a last-minute meeting at the gallery. But when I called her office, her assistant, Jen, hesitated. "Oh, Claire?" She stepped out for a bit. Not sure where. Jen's voice had that tight, nervous edge people get when they're lying. I hung up, staring at the rain streaking the windows, my gut twisting. That's when I decided to check her laptop. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, still warm, like she just closed it. I'm not proud of it, but I opened it, typed in her password, our anniversary, 0608, and started digging. Her email was a mess of gallery correspondence. But then I saw it. A thread with someone named Evan. No last name, just a Gmail address. The subject line was blank, and the messages were short, cryptic. Meet me at 7. Same place. Can't stop thinking about last time. My hands shook as I scrolled. There were dozens of them going back months. One from 2 days ago said, "Wear that blue dress again." My throat tightened. I'd bought her that dress for our anniversary last year. I sat there, rain hammering the roof, Milo whining at my feet, and realized my wife, my Claire, wasn't who I thought she was. The next day, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof, something concrete to hold up against the storm of doubt in my head. Claire breezed in that evening, her cheeks flushed, claiming she'd been running around all day with a new artist. She kissed me on the cheek, her lips cool, and I smelled that cedarwood again. It hit me like a punch. I mumbled something about work and retreated to the garage, where I keep my tools and my sanity. I needed a plan. I started tailing her. It felt absurd, like I was playing detective in some cheap noir film, but I had to know. Friday night, she said she was meeting a donor at a wine bar downtown. I waited until she left, then followed in my truck, keeping a few cars between us. She didn't go to the bar. Instead, she parked outside a sleek condo building on the west side, one of those overpriced glass boxes with a doorman. I watched her step out, wearing that blue dress, her hair loose the way I liked it. My chest ached. She disappeared inside, and I sat there, engine idling, for 2 hours. At 10:47, she emerged with him. Evan, I assumed. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a jawline that looked carved from stone. He wore a gray coat and laughed at something she said, his hand brushing her lower back. They stood under the streetlight, her leaning into him, and then he kissed her, slow, deliberate, like he owned her. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to ram the truck into them, to scream, to do anything but sit there like a coward. But I didn't. I drove home, Milo greeting me with a wagging tail, oblivious to the fact that my world was collapsing. Couldn't sleep that night. I kept seeing them together, replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for the cracks I'd missed. Had she ever loved me? Was I just a safety net, a fallback while she chased someone else? By morning, I decided. I wasn't going to let this destroy me quietly. If Claire wanted to throw us away, she'd pay for it. Not with tears or shouting matches, but with something colder, sharper. Revenge was a structure I could build piece by meticulous piece. Over the next week, I played the part of the oblivious husband. It was torture, smiling at her over coffee, asking about her day while knowing she was lying through her teeth. She'd chatter about the gallery, her voice light, and I'd nod, filing away every detail for later. I needed to know more about Evan, who he was, what he meant to her, how deep this went. So I dug. I started with her phone. She'd gotten careless, leaving it on the counter while she showered one night. I scrolled through her texts. Evan's name was saved as E, with a heart emoji. The messages were intimate, playful, the kind we used to send each other years ago. Missed you today. Counting the hours. My stomach churned, but I kept going. There were photos, too, selfies of them at a vineyard, his arm around her, her smiling like she hadn't in years. I forwarded everything to myself, then deleted the evidence from her sent folder. Next, I turned to the web. Evan's email led me to a LinkedIn profile. Evan Carmichael, 38, a real estate developer with a smug headshot and a list of high-profile projects. He was married, too. His wife, Laura, was a pediatrician. All blonde hair and warm smiles in their family photos on Instagram. They had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, grinning in matching Christmas sweaters. The hypocrisy of it made my blood boil. He was ruining my life while playing the perfect husband at home. I tracked Claire's movements with an app I'd installed on her phone. Ironic, since she'd once teased me for being too techie. She met Evan 3 times that week. Twice at his condo, once at a hotel near the river. Each time I followed, documenting it all, timestamps, photos, license plates. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but knowledge was power, and I was arming myself to the teeth. Milo sensed something was wrong, sticking close to me, his big eyes searching mine. I scratched his ears and promised him we'd get through this. But inside, I was a furnace of rage, stoking itself hotter every day. By the second week, I had enough to bury them both. But I didn't want a quick collapse. I wanted a slow, deliberate demolition, the kind that leaves nothing standing. Claire had betrayed me in the most personal way, and Evan had waltzed into my life like it was his to take. They'd feel the weight of it, every ounce. I started sketching it out in my head. Late at night in the garage, Milo curled up on an old blanket beside me. First, I'd expose them. Not just to me, but to everyone who mattered. Evan's wife, Laura, deserved to know what kind of man she'd married. His clients, his colleagues, they'd see the cracks in his polished facade. And Claire's world, her precious gallery, her artist friends. They'd turn on her when they realized she wasn't the devoted wife she pretended to be. But it couldn't be sloppy. It had to be precise, untraceable, a collapse so complete they'd never recover. I began with Laura. I created a burner email and sent her a package. Printed screenshots of the texts, photos of Claire and Evan outside his condo, a timeline of their meetings. I kept it anonymous, clinical, letting the evidence speak for itself. I mailed it to her office, not their home. Less chance of Evan intercepting it. Then I waited. 2 days later, Evan's Instagram went silent. No more family photos, no updates. I pictured Laura confronting him, her voice shaking, his excuses crumbling. It was a start. For Claire, I needed something bigger. I hacked into the gallery's email system, child's play for someone who'd spent years troubleshooting networks on construction sites. I drafted a message from her account to her boss, her coworkers, her artists. A confession. I've been unfaithful to my husband with a married man. I've used gallery resources to cover it up. I'm stepping away to figure out who I am. I didn't send it yet. I saved it in her drafts, a loaded gun waiting for the right moment. The following Monday, I saw the first cracks in Claire's facade. She came home late, her face pale, her hands trembling as she poured herself a glass of wine. Rough day, I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She nodded, avoiding my eyes. Just a lot going on. I didn't push. I knew why. Laura must have confronted Evan, and he'd told Claire. The ripple was spreading. That night she barely slept. I heard her pacing downstairs, muttering to herself. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining her panic. She had no idea I was behind it, no idea how much worse it would get. The next morning, she left early, claiming a crisis at work. I checked her email drafts after she was gone. She'd written to Evan, "We need to stop. It's too risky now." His reply was instant. "Don't overreact. We'll figure it out." Figure it out. Like I was a problem to solve. I decided it was time for the next move. I sent the gallery email from her account, blind copying every contact she had. Within hours, her phone started buzzing, texts, calls, voicemails. She came home at noon, her eyes red, her voice hoarse. "Someone hacked me," she said, slumping onto the couch. "They sent this awful email from my account. Everyone thinks I don't know what they think." She looked at me, pleading. "Dan, you believe me, right?" "I'd never." I nodded, playing the supportive husband, but inside I was ice. "Of course, Claire. We'll figure it out." She didn't suspect me, not yet, but her world was starting to fracture, just as I'd planned. Evan's marriage was likely in ruins, and now her career, her reputation, were teetering. I'd only begun. The real cruelty, the kind that lingers, was still to come. Claire's breakdown was slow at first, a quiet unraveling I could almost hear, like the creak of a beam under too much strain. She spent the next day on the phone, her voice rising and falling as she tried to explain the email to her boss, her coworkers, her artists. "It wasn't me," she kept saying, her tone desperate. "Someone's out to get me." I sat in the living room, pretending to read a book, Milo at my feet, while she paced the kitchen. Every call chipped away at her, and I watched it happen, feeling a cold satisfaction settle into my bones. She'd built her life on lies, and now the foundation was crumbling. By evening, she was a wreck. She collapsed onto the couch beside me, her hair tangled, her mascara streaked. "Dan, I don't know what to do," she said, her voice breaking. "The gallery's putting me on leave. They think I'm unstable." She reached for my hand, and I let her take it, though it felt like holding a stranger's. "Who would do this?" she whispered. I shrugged, keeping my face blank. "Maybe a disgruntled artist? Someone jealous." She nodded, clinging to the idea, but I could see the doubt flickering in her eyes. She was starting to wonder if this was bigger than a random attack. I didn't stop there. That night, while she slept, fitfully clutching a pillow, I used the burner email again. This time, I targeted Evan's professional circle. I sent the same photos and texts to his business partners, his investors, his biggest clients. I added a note. "Evan Carmichael's personal life is a liability. Can you trust him with your money?" I hit send and leaned back in the garage, the glow of my laptop casting shadows on the walls. Milo whined, sensing my tension, but I scratched his ears and murmured, "It's okay, buddy. We're just getting started." The fallout came fast. By morning, Evan's name was trending on X, local real estate circles buzzing about unprofessional conduct. A client had pulled out of a multimillion-dollar deal, citing personal concerns. I scrolled through the posts on my phone over breakfast, Claire oblivious as she stared into her coffee. She didn't mention Evan, but I knew she'd heard. Her silence was heavy, loaded with guilt she couldn't voice. I wondered if she'd call him, if they'd try to salvage whatever they had. Part of me hoped they would. It'd make the next blow even sweeter. Claire started pulling away. She'd leave the house without explanation, claiming she needed air, and come back hours later, her eyes distant. I didn't follow her anymore. I didn't need to. The tracking app showed her driving to a park, sitting in her car for hours, or circling Evan's condo without stopping. She was unraveling, and I let her. I kept up the act at home, cooking dinner, asking gentle questions she barely answered. "You okay, Claire?" I'd say, and she'd nod, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was like living with a ghost. Then, on Wednesday, she slipped. She left her phone on the counter again, and a text from Evan popped up. "Laura knows everything. She's leaving me." We need to talk. I stared at it, my pulse steady, my mind racing. Laura had acted faster than I'd expected. Good for her. I didn't reply, but I screenshotted it, adding it to my growing archive. When Claire came back from the bathroom, she snatched the phone up, her face paling as she saw the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked, casual as ever. She stammered, "Yeah, just work stuff," and fled to the bedroom. That night, I heard her crying through the door, soft, choked sobs she tried to muffle. I didn't comfort her. Instead, I sat in the garage plotting the next phase. Evan's marriage was done, his career teetering. Now it was time to tighten the noose around Claire. I'd been patient, methodical, but the rage inside me was growing, a fire I could barely contain. I wanted her to feel the betrayal I'd felt, to wake up every day with the weight of it crushing her. So I turned to her social world, her friends, her family, the people she'd always leaned on. I drafted another email from her account, this time to her inner circle. Her sister, her best friend from college, her parents. "I've been living a lie," it read. "I've hurt Dan in ways I can't take back. I don't deserve your support." I attached a photo, the one of her and Evan kissing under the streetlight. I sent it at 2 a.m., knowing they'd wake up to it. By morning, her phone was a war zone. Angry texts, voicemails, her sister's voice sharp with disbelief. Claire stumbled downstairs, her face ashen. "My family hates me," she said, staring at me like I could fix it. "They think I'm a monster." I just nodded, letting her drown in it. The emails were a domino effect. Claire's sister called me that afternoon, her voice tight with fury. "Dan, what the hell's going on?" She says she didn't send that, but the picture. God, I can't even look at her. I played dumb, calm. "I don't know, Lisa. She's been off lately. I'm trying to figure it out too." Lisa sighed, promising to dig deeper, but I could hear the disgust in her tone. Claire's support system was fracturing, just as I'd planned. At the gallery, the damage was spreading. Her leave turned into whispers of resignation. Artists pulled their work, donors backed off. A local art blog picked up the story, framing it as a scandal. Curator's personal drama rocks Portland's scene. They didn't name her, but everyone knew. Claire stopped going out, hiding in the house, her world shrinking. I watched her shrink with it, her confidence replaced by a jittery paranoia. She'd jump at every notification, every knock on the door, like she was waiting for the next blow. Evan wasn't faring better. His company issued a statement distancing itself from him, and a second client bailed. I found his wife's divorce filing online, public record, cold and final. I imagined him alone in that condo, staring at the wreckage, wondering how it all fell apart so fast. Good. Let him stew. But I wasn't done with him yet. I had one more card to play, something personal, something that had hit him where it hurt most. I went back to Laura. Using the burner, I sent her a tip. Check Evan's offshore accounts. He's been hiding money. I'd found the lead while digging through his business dealings. Shady transfers to a Cayman bank. If Laura's lawyers got hold of it, he'd lose everything in the divorce. I mailed it anonymously, then sat back, picturing his panic when the summons came. Claire and Evan had thought they could rewrite their lives without consequence. They were wrong. Claire broke on Friday. She came to me in the kitchen, her hands shaking, her voice raw. "Dan, I need to tell you something." I set down my coffee, bracing myself, though I already knew what was coming. She sat across from me, tears streaming, and it all spilled out. "Evan, the affair, months of lies. It started as a fling," she said, "but it got out of hand. I didn't mean to hurt you." She reached for me, but I pulled back, my face a mask. "Why?" I asked, keeping my tone flat. She faltered, fumbling for excuses. Loneliness, excitement, Evan's charm. "I was stupid," she finished, sobbing. "I'll end it. I swear." I nodded, letting her think I was processing, but inside I was steel. She thought this was the worst of it, that confession would absolve her. She had no idea I'd orchestrated her downfall, that every tear she shed was part of my design. I didn't yell or storm out. I just said, "I need time," and left her there, crying into her hands. Milo followed me to the garage, his tail low. I sat there, staring at my tools, feeling the weight of her words. Not the confession, I'd known that for weeks, but the audacity of her thinking she could fix it with a few apologies. She'd shattered us, and now she wanted forgiveness? No, she'd get ruin instead. That night, I sent Evan a message from the burner. She told me everything. "You're next." I didn't elaborate. Let him sweat it out, wondering what I knew, what I'd do. Claire slept downstairs, curled on the couch, while I lay awake, refining the endgame. Her confession changed nothing, it only fueled me. The next morning, Claire tried to rebuild. She called Evan, ending it in a hushed, tearful conversation I overheard from the hall. "It's over, Evan. I can't do this anymore." She hung up, then turned to me, hopeful. I told him, "Dan, it's done." I nodded, offering a thin smile, but I was already moving the pieces into place for the final strike. I started with Evan. I'd saved his dirtiest secret for last. A series of emails I'd hacked from his work account, proving he'd bribed city officials for permits. I sent them to a local journalist, anonymous, with a note, "Evan Carmichael's empire is built on corruption." Within 48 hours, the story broke. Front page news, his face plastered across every site. His company collapsed overnight, stock tanking, partners fleeing. The feds opened an investigation, and I pictured him scrambling, lawyers circling like vultures. For Claire, I went nuclear. I filed for divorce, but not quietly. I hired a lawyer who specialized in public cases and leaked the details to the press. Her affair, the gallery scandal, all of it. The filing included the photos, the texts, painting her as the villain. Portland's gossip mill churned, and she became a pariah. Her friends stopped calling, her family distanced themselves. She begged me to reconsider, sobbing in the driveway as I packed a bag. "Dan, please, I'll do anything." I looked at her, feeling nothing. "You already did," I said, and drove away, Milo in the passenger seat. I didn't stop there. I sold the house out from under her. Our equity split, but she'd get nothing until it closed. She'd have to scramble for a place. Her credit ruined by the legal fees I knew she couldn't afford. Evan, meanwhile, faced jail time, his life a smoking ruin. I'd taken everything from them: love, trust, stability, and left them with the ashes. It wasn't enough to heal me, but it was a start. The weeks following my departure were quiet in a way I hadn't expected. I rented a small cabin an hour outside Portland, tucked into the woods where the only sounds were Milo's paws on the hardwood and the rustle of pine trees outside. I'd left Claire behind, but her shadow lingered. Every creak of the floorboards felt like her footsteps, every flicker of light like her silhouette in the doorway. I didn't miss her, not exactly, but I missed the life I'd thought we had, the one I'd built in my head over 15 years. That was gone now, razed to the ground by my own hands as much as hers. Claire called daily at first, leaving voicemails I didn't answer. "Dan, please, let's talk. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this." Her voice grew thinner with each one, until they stopped altogether. I didn't block her number. I wanted her to know I was choosing silence. The divorce papers were served a week after I left, and my lawyer told me she'd signed them without a fight. She didn't contest the house sale or the asset split, which surprised me. Maybe she was too broken to argue, or maybe she thought compliance would soften me. Didn't. I kept tabs on Evan, too. The news was relentless. His company bankrupt, his assets frozen, his name a punchline in every bar and boardroom. The bribery scandal had ballooned, dragging in city officials who pointed fingers back at him. His trial was set for summer, and the headlines predicted years behind bars. Laura had taken the kids and moved to Seattle, her social media wiped clean. I wondered if she'd thanked her anonymous tipster, if she'd ever guess it was me. Probably not. I covered my tracks too well. Milo and I settled into a routine: morning walks, evenings by the fire. I started sketching again. Not buildings this time, but abstract shapes, jagged lines that mirrored the chaos inside me. Revenge had been a clean burn, a controlled demolition, but it left me hollow. I'd torn them down, Claire and Evan, and it felt good, God, it felt good, but it didn't fill the space they'd left. I wasn't sure anything could. A month later, I got a call from Lisa, Claire's sister. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won out. Dan, it's me, she said, her voice clipped. I just wanted you to know Claire's not okay. She paused, and I could hear the conflict in her breathing. She's living in some rundown apartment now, barely eats, barely leaves. Mom's worried she's, I don't know, losing it. I'm not saying it's your fault, but I thought you should know. I thanked her, kept it short, and hung up. I didn't feel guilt. Claire had chosen her path, but I felt something, a faint tug I couldn't name. I drove into town that weekend, not to see her, but to check on the house sale. The realtor met me at the property, a cheerful woman who didn't ask questions. It's under contract, she said, handing me the paperwork. Should close in a few weeks. I nodded, walking through the empty rooms one last time. The walls were bare, the furniture gone, but I could still see us there. Claire laughing in the kitchen, Milo chasing his tail. It was a ghost of a life, and I let it go as I locked the door behind me. On the way back, I stopped at a diner and saw Evan's face on the TV above the counter. Disgraced developer pleads guilty, the ticker read. He'd cut a deal, 5 years, plus fines that'd leave him penniless. The footage showed him leaving court, head down, shoulders slumped. He looked smaller, diminished, nothing like the man who'd kissed my wife under a streetlight. I sipped my coffee, watching the screen, and felt a flicker of triumph. It wasn't joy, not anymore. Just a quiet nod to the justice I'd engineered. Claire's gallery shut down that week, too. The scandal had killed its reputation, and the owner cut his losses. I found the article online, buried in a local paper. Art space closes amid controversy. Her name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. She was a footnote now, erased from the world she'd loved. I wondered if she blamed Evan or herself or me. Maybe all of us. I didn't care enough to ask. 2 months into my exile, someone knocked on the cabin door. Milo barked, hackles up, and I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the couch. Not out of fear, but habit. I opened the door to find Claire standing there, rain-soaked and shivering. She looked like a stranger, her hair limp, her face gaunt, her coat too big for her frame. Dan, she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. Can I come in? I didn't want to let her, but Milo whined, nudging her hand, and I stepped aside. She sat by the fire, dripping onto the rug, and stared at her hands. I'm not here to beg, she said finally. I needed to see you. I stayed silent, leaning against the wall, waiting. She took a breath. I know you did it. The emails, the leaks, all of it. I don't know how, but I know. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face blank. That's a hell of an accusation, I said. She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Don't play dumb, Dan. It's too late for that. I'm not mad, I deserved it. I just wanted you to know I'm done fighting. You won. She looked at me then, her eyes hollow. I loved you, you know, even when I was with him. I don't expect you to believe that. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She stood, shaky, and headed for the door. I'm leaving Portland, she said, starting over somewhere else. I won't bother you again. She paused, hand on the knob. I'm sorry, Dan, for everything. Then she was gone, swallowed by the rain. I locked the door, Milo pressing against my leg, and sat there, staring at the fire. She knew. It didn't change anything, but it shifted something in me. A crack in the armor I'd built. Claire's visit rattled me more than I'd admit. I'd spent months crafting her punishment, Evan's too, but hearing her say it out loud, knowing she'd seen through me, made it real in a way it hadn't been. I wasn't the invisible architect anymore. I was the man who'd burned their lives to the ground. It didn't undo her betrayal, didn't erase the nights I'd spent imagining them together, but it forced me to look at what I'd become. A destroyer, yes, but also a ghost haunting my own ruins. I drove to Evan's condo the next day, not sure why. It was empty. A for sale sign staked in the yard, windows dark. I sat in my truck, staring at it, remembering the night I'd watched them there, her in that blue dress. The memory still stung, but it was duller now, less a knife and more a bruise. He was gone, prison-bound, broke, alone. I'd done that. I waited for the rush of victory, but it didn't come. Just a heavy stillness, like the air before a storm breaks. Back at the cabin, I pulled out my sketches, the jagged lines I'd drawn in anger. They felt like relics now, artifacts of a man I didn't fully recognize. I started a new one, a bridge strong and simple spanning a river. It was the first thing I'd designed in months that wasn't about destruction. Milo watched me, head tilted, and I realized I was ready to move on. Not forgive, not forget, but build something new. The house sale closed that week, the money wired to my account. I'd use it to start over, somewhere far from Portland's ghosts. Spring came early that year, the woods around the cabin bursting with green. I packed up, Milo's toys and my sketches stuffed into the truck, and drove east. I didn't have a destination, just a direction. Away from Claire, Evan, and the life I'd dismantled. The radio played soft jazz, and I let my mind wander, not to revenge, but to what lay ahead. A small town, maybe, where I could consult on projects, rebuild my name. Milo slept beside me, snoring gently, my one constant. Claire was gone, where I didn't care. Evan was in a cell, his world reduced to concrete and bars. They'd paid for what they did, not with their lives, but with everything that made them who they were. I'd made sure of that. And me? I wasn't whole, not yet, but I was free. The road stretched out endless and open, and for the first time in months, I felt the weight lift. Just a little. It was enough.